Welcome to General Longstreet's Museum and the William Nenney House, located in Russellville, Tennessee, used as a headquarters for General Longstreet and his officers as they wintered in East Tennessee. Come along with us as we walk through history as we go around the grounds and the rooms inside of the house. There are 5 rooms filled with artifacts and a 6th room that has a lot of information in it. We will take these rooms one at a time so that everyone can see the interesting artifacts there. The conflict continues 1864 through 1865. Despite General Longstreet's departure, the corridor between Knoxville and Bull's Gap remained contested until the end of 1864. Skirmishes took place in Russellville in October and November. Women dressed the wounded at local churches and buried the dead. The poet-priest Father Abraham Ryan ministered to the Confederate troops. Quote, I have started 2 regiments to the railroad in the vicinity of Russellville to make a demonstration tonight, unquote. Confederate General John C. Vaughn, Commander, Cavalry Brigade, November 11, 1864. The pressures of living under occupation led to violence. A feud erupted between the Kane and Bruley families, whose farms adjoined in Hawkins County, over wartime loyalty and assistance to the armies. At the Russellville Depot in April 1864, Union Lieutenant William Bruley shot Hugh Kane, Jr., who died at the Nenney house. A year later, Kane's son William killed Bruley in Russellville and then was killed by Thomas Sizemore. Quote, we were friendly until my son and Mr. Kane fell out. Quite friendly. The families were intimate until then, unquote. Mrs. Mahaly Bruley of Hawkins County, August 12, 1864. In mid-November 1864, the Confederates forced Union troops back to Strawberry Plains. Confederate General John C. Breckinridge doubted the Union Army would fight again that winter in the area. Union General George Stoneman, however, soon pushed all regular Confederate troops from East Tennessee. In March 1865, Federal engineers repaired the railroad from Strawberry Plains to Bull's Gap, including the 150-foot span bridge at Russellville. The entire Union 4th Army Corps traveled from Knoxville to Greenville and then retraced their steps as the war ended in April. Quote, we encamped that night about a mile from Russellville. The town of Russellville contains some 300 or 400 inhabitants and has as much more cleanly and cheerful appearance than Morristown or Strawberry Plains, unquote. Quartermaster Lewis A. Simmons, 84th Regiment, Illinois Volunteers, recalling the night of March 26, 1865. The area's natural beauty comforted returning veterans. Former Confederates applied for pardons from President Andrew Johnson. Charles Nenney received his on November 9, 1865. Other residents applied for compensation for goods provided to the Union Army. William Nenney, Charles' uncle, put a claim in for $93 for 1 copper kettle and 5 hogs used by General Orlando Wilcox's forces at Bull's Gap, but never submitted the necessary documentation to prove his Unionism. Like the Nenneys, people throughout the region rebuilt their families and communities. Photographs on the boards. Union Pickets the Woods, courtesy of Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War, Chicago, 1896. Russellville Depot, courtesy of Bill Henderson. Soldiers camping on a farm, courtesy of the Library of Congress. Railroad Bridge at Strawberry Plains, note, fort and distance, upper right, courtesy of the Library of Congress. East Tennessee Battles of 1864. Battle of Dandridge. Campaign. Longstreet's East Tennessee Campaign, 1863 through 1864. Date, 17th of January, 1864. Location, Jefferson County, Tennessee. Result, Confederate victory with Union forces. Principal battlefield commanders: Brigadier General Samuel D. Sturgis, Major General John G. Park, U.S., Lieutenant General James Longstreet, C.S. Forces engaged: Union, Army of the Ohio, Cavalry Corps, 1st Corps Infantry. Confederate, Longstreet's 1st Corps and Cavalry, Department of East Tennessee troops. Estimated casualties: Union, 150. Confederate, unknown. Summary. During early 1864, both armies remained alert as they suffered from sub-freezing weather. On the 14th of January, General Longstreet's scouts detected Union activity near Dandridge, and the Confederates headed towards the French Broad River, little realizing that another Federal force under General Park was on the way to join General Sturgis there. Longstreet, moving westward, drove the Federals into Dandridge on 16th of January. The next day, the Confederates cautiously probed the Union defenses in preparation for the general attack. Although the Federals had amassed more than 26,000 men in Dandridge, Park ordered a retreat during the night. When Longstreet awoke on January 18th, he found an empty town. Battle of Fair Garden. Campaign: Longstreet's East Tennessee Campaign, 1863 to 1864. Date: January 27, 1864. Location: Sevier County, Tennessee. Result: tactical Union victory followed by withdrawal when faced with advancing Confederate infantry. Principal battlefield commanders: Brigadier General Samuel D. Sturgis, Colonel Edward M. McCook, U.S., Major General William T. Martin, C.S. Forces engaged: Union, Army of the Ohio, Cavalry Corps, Confederate, Longstreet's 1st Corps, Department of East Tennessee troops. Estimated casualties: Union, 100, Confederate, 165. Summary. To encounter Union foraging incursions into the territory south of the French Broad River, General Longstreet sent General Martin's cavalry across the river to Fair Garden. As the cavalries advanced, General Sturgis noticed the movement and sent Colonel McCook to attack the main Confederate force concentrated on the Fair Garden road. McCook's cavalrymen materialized out of the heavy fog and drove the Southern cavalry back, routing their opponents with a saber attack. As the Union horsemen chased the Confederates, they spotted 3 Confederate infantry brigades crossing the river and withdrew. Although the Federals won the tactical victory, the Confederates regained control over the rich foraging area vacated by Sturgis. Battle of Bull's Gap, Russellville. Campaign: Breckinridge East Tennessee Campaign, 1864. Date: November 10th through 14th, 1864. Location: Hamlin and Greene Counties, Tennessee. Result: Confederate victory. Principal battlefield commanders: Brigadier General Alvin C. Gillem, U.S., Major General William C. Breckinridge, C.S. Forces engaged: Union, Tennessee Governor's Guard, Confederate, Department of the Western Virginia and East Tennessee troops. Estimated casualties: Union, 241, Confederate, unknown. Summary. In April 1864, General Longstreet and his 1st Corps returned to Virginia, following several Union successes that allowed their cavalry to roam almost as far as Bristol. General Breckinridge decided to push the Federals back to their base at Strawberry Plains. After gathering up his forces, Breckinridge drove General Gillem's troops into Bull's Gap on November 10th. 2 days later, the Confederate commander led a frontal assault that failed miserably, but emptied the Union cartridge boxes. Due to the lack of ammunition, Gillem ordered a retreat and Breckinridge gave chase, catching the Federals near Russellville early in the morning of the 14th of November and shattering their line. The scattered Union cavalrymen stampeded back to Strawberry Plains and Knoxville. Pictures on the board. Union cavalry charge, courtesy of Frank Leslie's Illustrated Famous Leaders and Battle Scenes of the Civil War, New York, 1896. Cavalry skirmishing, courtesy of the Soldier in Our Civil War, A Pictorial History of the Conflict, 1861 through 1865, New York, 1890. Confederate Charge, courtesy of Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War, Chicago, 1896. General Longstreet's winner, Upper East Tennessee, 1863-1864. During the war's third winter, Russellville's significance increased dramatically when the Confederate First Corps established quarters here from December 22, 1863 to January 29, 1864. General James Longstreet and his staff lived at the Nenney house, which Major Awesome Latrobe described in one revealing word, quote, warm, unquote. Quote, during the last few days of the year 1863, the cold of the severest winter of the war came on, and constantly increased until the thermometer approached 0, and on New Year's dropped below, hanging near that figure for about 2 weeks. The severe season gave rest to everyone. Even the cavalry had a little quiet, but it was cold comfort, for the orders were to keep the enemy in sight, unquote. General James Longstreet, from his 1896 memoir of the war. Longstreet's men faced brutal weather conditions. Temperatures were below freezing, and the ground was covered in ice, sleet, and snow. The soldiers built long shelters, but still suffered miserably, especially the 2,000 men who had no shoes. Quote, the surface of the ground is hard as a rock, and at every step the frozen edges of the earth cut into naked feet, until the path of the army may almost be said to have been tracked in blood, unquote. Felix G. DeFontaine, war correspondent, Charleston Daily Courier, December 24, 1863. The soldiers survived by foraging from local residents. The First Corps commandeered the cane mill, where slaves ground corn for the soldiers day and night. Although the men had plenty to eat and drink for Christmas, they soon found local supplies dwindling. Quote, we spent the winter between Russellville and Greenville, living off the country, having occasional expeditions, and alarms enough to destroy most of the comfort of the winter quarters, unquote. Confederate General E. Porter Alexander, from his essay, quote, Longstreet at Knoxville, unquote, in Battles and Leaders of the Civil War, Volume 3, 1889. While headquartered at the Nenney House, General Longstreet's men fought at Mossy Creek, Dandridge, and Fair Garden, battling forces under Union General Samuel Sturgis and General John Parke for strategic position and control of foraging areas. Late in January, General Longstreet left the Nenney House for Morristown. Russellville remained under Confederate control, and the troops continued to drain the area of food and supplies. In February 1864, Charles Nenney and his brother William sold 800 pounds of salt to the Confederates at 40 cents a pound. In April, General Longstreet concluded his frustrating interlude in East Tennessee and headed back to Virginia to assist General Robert E. Lee with his spring campaign against General Ulysses S. Grant. Photographs on the board. Courtesy of the Library of Congress. Courtesy of Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War, Chicago, 1896. Courtesy of The Soldier in Our Civil War, A Pictorial History of the Conflict, 1861 through 1865, New York, 1890. Thank you for walking with us through history as we look at the rooms full of artifacts contained in the General Longstreet Museum and the William Nenney House, located in Russellville, Tennessee. Be sure to drop in and say hi to the historians there. Thank you for watching and supporting Kentucky Tennessee Living as we bring to you the lost and forgotten histories in Kentucky and Tennessee.